Welcome to the Gavel. I'm Terry Ikumi. The political landscape is busy with primaries of political parties to decide who would fly their flags in the 2027 general election. And for this reason, the National Assembly had adjourned legislative activities on the 6th of May till the 2nd of June. Now, the 10th National Assembly has seen one of the largest waves of defections since 1999. The exact numbers vary by source and date, but more than 120 federal lawmakers have dumped the parties they were elected under and moved to other parties. This includes both the Senate and House of Representative members. Analysts say that the defections have weakened opposition numbers, making it easier for the Tinubu administration to pass bills without proper consideration of the effects on the people. By reducing opposition voices in lawmaking, it's raised concerns about voter trust and political loyalty. Now, that brings us to the ongoing primaries and the 2027 National Assembly elections. Nigerians cannot afford to sleep on their members of parliament anymore. Who you send to the National Assembly to represent you is highly important. Some would say even more important to a constituent than who becomes president. Now, in Nigeria, we treat elections like a 4-year ritual. We vote, we complain for a while, then forget about the person until the next campaign posters show up. And that gap between the ballot box and the handover of power is exactly where bad laws get passed and good ones die quietly. So, if you want evidence, just take a look at what Parliament has actually been doing while most of us were not watching. Parliament makes the rules that run your life. The National Assembly doesn't just approve budgets. It passes bills that decide how much you pay for electricity, how the police can arrest you, what your schools teach, and whether your phone line gets blocked without a court order. Now let's take the Electoral Act 2022, for example. For years, Nigerians pushed for electronic transmission of results because we were tired of results changing between polling units and collation centers. The bill went back and forth and only passed after sustained public pressure. The difference it made in 2023 was obvious and would even be more obvious in 2027. More transparency, fewer excuses. Motions, on the other hand, shape policy before it becomes law. Bills get the headlines, but motions are where Parliament sets the agenda. A motion can force a minister to appear before the House. It could halt a policy or even trigger an investigation. Let me give you an example. In 2023, a motion in the House of Representatives drew attention to the arbitrary increase in electricity tariffs and led to a public hearing. In 2024, motions on the scarcity of cash and the redesign of the Naira forced the central bank to clarify its policy and extend the deadlines. None of that happens if your representative or senator is absent, silent, or trading votes for committee positions. But do you pay attention to their attendance and contributions during sittings, whether in plenary or committee meetings? Now, they're all the same. That's what we're saying, and that's how bad bills pass. Remember that. The excuse that all politicians are the same is how unpopular legislation gets passed, with just about 40 members in a chamber of 360. When attendance is low and the public is absent, the few who show up decide for everyone. Now, in states where civil society groups do scorecards, they do town halls, you get to see that reps show up, they submit bills and explain their votes. In constituencies where nobody asks questions, you see absenteeism and silence. The constituency project system is a perfect example. It is riddled with opacity. But in places where citizens track projects, money gets spent on actual boreholes and clinics instead of disappearing into capacity building workshops. You need to know who your representative is. The House of Reps and Senator for your federal constituency and senatorial district. You need to follow what they say and vote on. You need to engage them before they vote on bills, use calls, emails, or visit the constituency office when a bill affecting you is at second reading. After it passes, it is too late. Judge them on their actions and not rhetorics. Remember that. Now, the bottom line is, Parliament is not a place for honorables, in quotes, to go and rest after politics. It's a factory for laws and money decisions that affect your rent, your fuel price, your job prospects, and your rights. Keep that in mind. Because if you leave it to party whips and lobbyists, you'll get laws made for party whips and lobbyists. If you pay attention, if you ask questions and make noise early enough, you'll get something closer to laws made for you. The people in Abuja make laws for your farm. They make laws for your market and your children's school. So pay attention to party primaries and make your choice during the National Assembly elections based on what you know about a candidate and not their party. Remember to vote out any incumbent lawmaker who has not represented you well or who has been repeatedly absent from his legislative duties. Finally, please share and explain this message to your families in rural areas in the simplest forms so that they are not used and misled again. All right, let's move on. A member of the House of Representatives representing Abuja Municipal Buhari Federal Constituency, Joshua Chinedu-Obika, has defended his movement across political parties, insisting that his decisions were driven by political realities and loyalty to the new Nigeria movement championed by former Labour Party presidential candidate Mr. Peter Obi. And according to him, the situation created uncertainty for many members and supporters who feared the party could no longer provide a viable political platform ahead of future elections.
I've been of the view that in Nigeria today, that the two people that have the most organic supporters that are genuinely involved for the transformation of our country is Peter Obi and that of His Excellency Kwankwaso. And some of us have been of the view that these are the two people that need each other to come together. And the people who have the mind for the betterment of our country, we stand by them, and we believe that such combined mandate can give us the best result that we were expecting. And to God be the glory. Before I waited for a long time and I was not seeing the green light, I have to move to APC. And after I entered into APC, I think about some weeks or close to a month, our leader now defected into NDC. Immediately the news filtered. I think it's for the best interest of everyone, for people who have the same ideology and belief, to come together and support that mandate. I didn't hesitate but to cross to NDC. So our leader have said severally that if it takes him to cross into 20 political parties, but to succeed for the battle for a new Nigeria, that is ready to do that. I think that the issue here should be based on what 2 years plus that I have spent in the National Assembly, what impact has it brought to the people of Ahmad Buhari Federal Constituency?
Now let's track back and take a look at some bills, motions and reports considered and passed by Parliament just before the break that you may have missed. The House of Representatives, through a motion of urgent national importance on the need to enforce regulatory rules on siting of gas filling stations and outlets and manage emergencies arising from a gas explosion in Apapa Federal Constituency, Lagos State, mandated the regulatory bodies on the siting of gas filling stations and outlets to be strict in enforcement of location rules. The House also considered and approved a motion on the need to investigate Owando PLC on stoppage of its corporate social responsibility.
Also notes that the acquisition of Ajib Eni included both its assets and liabilities, encompassing obligations such as the provision of electricity supply to the host communities as part of its corporate social responsibility, CSR commitments. Further notes that these and other community services were consistently provided before the acquisition by Owando Nigerian PLC, and such CSR initiatives by the then Ajib N significantly fostered sustainable and mutually beneficial relations between the company and its host communities. Aware that following the acquisition of Ajib Eni by Owando Nigeria PLC in 2024, signs of a declining commitment to corporate social responsibility to the host communities began to manifest, including restricted access to the company's executives, thereby limiting opportunities for constructive engagement on critical issues, such as the persistent blackout affecting the 3 communities of Tuambras, Okpoma, and Ewama in Brass, Lembe Federal Constituency. Worried that given the sensitive and often fragile relationship between oil companies and host communities in the Niger Delta, such conduct could trigger adverse reaction with far-reaching and potentially destabilizing consequences if not urgently addressed by the House and relevant authorities. Convinced that the prolonged blackout in these communities has significantly disrupted social and economic life and has contributed to increasing distrust and tension between the host communities and the company, the House resolved to mandate the House Committee on Corporate Social Responsibility to investigate the matter and make appropriate recommendations to the House for further legislative action.
Meanwhile, the Senate had passed the 2.2 trillion naira FCT 2026 budget, though there were some observations.
I am not averse to the passage of this budget. We should pass it only with a proviso to the effect that next time when such a top-notch budget is being presented, it should be accompanied with the revenue profile of the FCT to make it more transparent and accountable to Nigerians.
Just as the Deputy Senate President have seen the presentation to be top-notched, I believe the same thing. I also looked through the presentation, is really top-notched. But as Senator Abiru and Senator Mongono have said, top-notch presentation of a budget without revenue profile is an incomplete document. So it is necessary that the revenue profile should accompany the expenditure so that we know where the source of funding is coming from. I think with what Senator Mongono have said, it will be necessary for the revenue profile to be attached so that after we have passed this thing, nobody will come to ask where the money is going to come from.
Distinguished colleagues, is there anybody that is opposed to this budget being passed? Those in support that this we proceed here from to the Committee of Supply, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
The budget was also passed in the House of Representatives. Welcome back to the Gavel. Last week, the House of Representatives engaged Mr. Ayo Shotinri, Managing Director of the Bank of Agriculture, on agricultural development in the country. Here's a look at how that went.
I like figures and I play with figures. I was able to put down the ranges of horsepower. You mentioned 43 million, 54 million, no, 45 million, 50 million. I want to ask you, is there a moratorium for payment for either 43 million, 45 million, or 50? Or is it an outright purchase because we don't have the money?
History we have in this country with respect to policy inconsistency, especially within the agricultural sector. You find there are different policies when there are different change of leadership within the sector. In an event, there is the failure of PPP, because I believe the component of this agri-hubs is the issue of the PPP arrangement, isn't it? In an event, am I right? Something like that, that's good. So in an event, there is a failure of this policy, and then the PPP arrangement fails, what will happen to the agri-hubs?
What we've done so far is to turn a new leaf within the Bank of Agriculture, where we're not giving tractors out to farmers that they can maintain, and these turn to artifacts and turn to scrap metals. We have designed a very robust program with the able leadership of Mr. President to refinance these tractors to mechanization service providers, where each service provider is able to buy a tractor at a subsidized amount of money, pay 30%, and we spread the remaining over a period of time. It would interest you to know that we had 120,000 applications, and we were able to shortlist 15,000 mechanization service providers across the country. So I'm glad to announce that the tractors have been shaved off by 40%. Today, tractors that cost 100 million naira, we are selling the tractors for about 43 million naira, some bigger ones for 45, and the biggest one for 50 million naira. These tractors are not the usual 65, 75 horsepower tractors. They're big tractors, and they're very strong tractors that can mechanize minimum 600 hectares of land every single year.
Earlier, the House had debated a bill for an act to establish a 50-year national economic plan for Nigeria and measures to compel compliance.
It is good to note that we run an election cycle of every 4 years, meaning that if we are proposing a 50-year growth plan, that we'll be running it through over 10 election cycles. I think it's very important for us to note that
this bill is going to promote sustainability. So I want to urge my colleagues that it is high time that we depart from the normal administration that we are familiar with as a country.
We've been able to build at least about four schools, 4 classrooms, blocks of classrooms, hospital, a federal medical center annex has been brought into the federal constituency at Labora Wode. When we talk about schools, we have the Solalade Junior Secondary School, we have the Balogun Sanusi Primary School, we have the Debojo Secondary School, and now we are still working on 1 or 2 that would be completed very soon. And in area of empowerment, because Ibejuleki used to be an agrarian local government until this dispensation when a lot of activities have been brought over, talking about the free trade zone, Lekki deep sea ports, Dangote refinery, and all the rest. This has actually changed the occupation of the people, and then we need to now train people in line with the reality on ground. One, people have to ensure that people get into the mainstream of most of these projects, the Dangote refinery and the rest. That means we must start training our children to be engineers, chemical engineers, petroleum engineers, even people into diving because of the deep sea port and all the rest. So we started encouraging our youths to ensure that they not just go to the university, but to take the right courses. And in the process, we're also encouraging, assisting them in provision of JAM forms, bursaries, and all the stuff, financial assistance for the students. And for the artisans, there must be people who must, because we have the largest real estate development too in Ibejuleki because of all this industrialization. So we've been able to do a lot of training for them in this field, working with the NDE, Nigerian Directorate of Employment, because if you work with them, they're able to give them certification, trade tests, and some of these certifications that will be able to make them work in some of these factories at the end of the day. So we'll be able to train at least close to 200-300 during the past few years. And also giving empowerment in terms of materials, deep freezers, fridges, mini buses, outboard engines, And for tailors and fashion designers too, we've given them sewing machines and all the accessories. And for people in the beauty sector too, hairdressers and barbing, we've also been able to give them their necessary kits. We did about 1,000 people about 2 years ago to ensure that yes, most of our people are ready for the development coming in. Presently, we are working on the farmers because now food has been a major problem, feeding ourselves. Like I said, Budgetary has the largest landmass, 646 square kilometers in Lagos. So we told our people, even if you have sold land to people who are doing real estate, most of them have not started developing yet. You can still work with them and farm on the land. Ensure that you're only farming shrubs and vegetables. Don't go into long-term, perennial agriculture like planting of palm trees and all the rest. Just plants, cassava, vegetable. Those are things you can easily harvest when they come. And we just distributed about 500 bags of fertilizer recently. For the fish farmers too, we are going to give them this fish tank so that we want to start with 10 groups. We establish 10 groups. We give you the fish tanks with all the feedings and all the fish. At least we'll monitor them. If you can prove yourself to be to have interest in this, we can start taking some individuals later, but we want to start with 10 groups. So that will be 10 major tanks. I think it's about 4,000 liters a tank. That's what they use for this fish. That will take about 3,000 fish each. So we're looking at about, that means you have 3,000 into 10, that's about 30,000 fishes.
Well, that's all the time we have on the Gavel. Thanks for watching. Do well to send feedback to the Gavel at channelstv.com. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.